So many big games on Sunday. I wouldn't have been surprised if the Thursday night game was a little bit of a letdown, but that's how exciting week 11 is. Even Thursday night football has big time potential, a huge NFC East matchup. The Washington Commanders going up to Philadelphia, taking on the Eagles. A huge road test for Jayden Daniels in Washington coming off of that loss to Pittsburgh. So it felt like the perfect game for On the Road, presented by Honda. Dreams are unstoppable. And here with me now to preview a very good Thursday night football game, be Fox Sports reporter Ralph Vacchiano. Ralph, how we doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm I'm excited. I'm so curious and intrigued. I still can't get enough of being excited by Washington football, to be honest with you. It's such a new place for me. I was born a couple years before their last Super Bowl. I was technically alive, but I have no memory of it. And so we're sitting here in week 11, and I looked this up, Ralph. This is the first time Washington has faced Philly while multiple games above 500 since the RG3 season. So, I mean, it's more than a decade since Washington was playing like such a juicy divisional game this late in the season. It's uncharted territory, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, it just goes to show you how many bad years they've had recently and how difficult it is down there. And, they're certainly in Washington overly excited by this whole thing because they haven't seen that many big games in the NFC East. And really, even when they did, they were mediocre games. There weren't two teams sort of playing at the top of their game. And that's what you've got here. And it's a huge test. Washington has played great. Jayden Daniels has been terrific. There's a lot of reason to believe in this team, but they've yet to win that big game against a really tough opponent. And this is their chance. This is a statement game. We'll find out, are they just an up and coming team or are they ready to win right now?
Yeah, you're right. To this point, I guess the Commanders' selling points right now are a very close loss to Pittsburgh and a very close loss to Baltimore. Beating Philly, particularly on the road, would be very impressive. And at least for the first 5, 6 weeks of the season, you could argue this felt like Washington's division. But if the segment says dreams are unstoppable, Philadelphia looks awfully unstoppable since they came out of that bye week, winning these 5 games by an average margin of 16 points. We can get into the offense, but I think everybody gets that. It's been the theme for the Eagles for the last 2 years or so. Now that they're a little bit healthier on that side of the ball, it makes sense that they're rolling. But what have you seen from this defense here on this 5 game winning streak? Because it's not like they're just outscoring opponents. I mean, they've been dominant on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, they really have. What I've seen out of them is a more coherent defense, a defense that really seems to understand the scheme that they're playing. I think during the first couple of weeks, a lot of us wondered if they were really getting what Vic Fangio was teaching them down there because it just didn't look like it looked like there were too many mental mistakes being made, and you don't see that anymore. They've been especially strong in the secondary, more so than they are up front. They have a good pass rush at times. They've had some great games with the pass rush, but it's not really their strength right now. That seems to be more in the back end of the defense. And they're tackling better, which is really something. If you look back to last year, their defense fell apart in the tackling, especially once you got to the linebackers and the cornerbacks and the safeties. Just too many mid gains or short gains turned into big gains, and you don't really see that happening anymore. So it does look like it's all coming together. I'd like to see a little bit more consistent pressure from up front for them. Maybe I'm a little spoiled by the fact that they had just a couple of years ago where they were a 70 sack team. I don't think obviously they're going to be that anymore, but overall, they've got some really good players on this defense and they're starting to play like it.
I think that is something I want to watch out for in this game is the Philly pass rush. It hasn't been awful, but you're exactly right. It just hasn't been that historic unit from a few years ago. I did see in this game against Pittsburgh last week for Washington, Jayden Daniels was pressured on 35% of his dropbacks. The Steelers got after him. Not coincidentally, it was his worst passer rating of the season. Unfortunately for Philly, they don't have the horses that Pittsburgh has. I mean, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, all those guys, they're not suiting up for Philly. I am curious to see how Vic Fangio can sort of replicate those results maybe without just the pure pass rush horses that the Steelers have.
Yeah, and it's not easy against a guy like Jayden Daniels because one of the things that's been really good about him as a rookie is his ability to create plays outside of the pocket. And you can chase him, and that's totally fine. But he can also run. So he didn't do that as well against the Steelers, and obviously he didn't create as many opportunities in the passing game. But there is certainly always that threat. And I think if you're the Eagles, what you need to do is once you get him out of the pocket or once you disrupt this play, make sure that secondary is playing really well. Don't give him the options. He's got some good weapons in the passing game, so don't give him the options to make those big plays. But so you want to keep him at you want to pressure him, you want to try to rattle him, but you have to be careful because sometimes that doesn't always work with a quarterback like him.
I'm not sure if he'll play a role in pressuring Jayden, but I did want to shout out Zach Bond, who I feel like is just now starting to get his flowers for a really impressive start to the season. 87 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, signed from the Saints in the offseason. And Ralph, I love the story that I heard this week that Howie Roseman wanted to sign him as a reserve pass rusher and special teamer because that's kind of what he did for the Saints. Vic Fangio was the guy that was like, no, this guy is going to play inside linebacker for us. And I mean, the guy's having an incredible season. It's been a fun story to follow.
Yeah, he's been fantastic and much needed for them because their linebackers were a weakness at times last year. You also have seen much better play from N'Kobe Dean. So it's been a lot of strengthening of the linebacker core. That's a big reason when I talked about the tackling being better. Those two are a big reason why the run defense has been better in part because of them. They've found good players. They had a lot of good players, but they're getting them to play up to and exceeding their potential, which is a credit to Vic Fangio and that whole coaching staff.
On the other side of this game, like I said, the Eagles offense, I mean, what do you want me to say? They are loaded, they are healthier than they were, and they look like it. I did have a moment this week while I was prepping for this game, though. My eyebrows shot up when I saw Jalen Hurts can become the third quarterback in NFL history to record a passer rating above 115 in 6 games, 6 straight games. And the other two quarterbacks that have done that were 2018 Pat Mahomes and 2011 Aaron Rodgers. So even if it was a little bit of a slow start, it's not hyperbole to say Jalen Hurts is playing at an MVP level right now.
He is. He's playing great. He's doing all of the things that we saw him do during that 2022 season when he was an MVP candidate. He's running the ball smartly, not just scrambling to take off. He's doing it in the right spots. He's creating plays outside the pocket. He's strong inside the pocket as well. And I think, a lot of that obviously goes to Jalen Hurts' ability. He's a terrific quarterback. I do think he's one of the better ones in the league, but I think it also is a testament to the offensive game plan where they are really relying so much right now on their running game, which is always their strength. And it's what they abandoned last year, especially during their losing streak at the end of the season. When they run first, whether it's Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts, when they're a threat to run and they rely on that ground game, teams have to overcommit to that and it opens everything else up. And I'm not saying it makes it easy on Jalen Hurts, but it certainly makes it easier and it makes it less likely to make mistakes. It gives them a chance to get the ball to AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and let them actually create big plays, even on shorter passes. So right now, it's all working. They figured out a way to get Jalen Hurts playing back at his best again. And really, you got to go back 5 or 6 games now. They've been rolling, and if they keep with that same offensive strategy, that offense is going to be hard to stop.
I hate to oversimplify it. I know it'll be more complicated than this, but you just kind of laid out why I like the Eagles in this game, which is you're going to commit resources to limiting Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts in the running game. And maybe I'm just stuck on how dominant AJ Brown was in this series last year, but the Commanders have already ruled Marshawn Lattimore out for this game. They just traded for him with New Orleans a couple weeks ago. He's not ready to make his debut for Washington. Do the Commanders have guys who can deal with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith? Because I'm not convinced that they do.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that they do either, and I don't think they are. The fact that they traded for Marshawn Lattimore tells you that they knew they needed help in the secondary. I think they knew going into the season it was a bit of a weakness. They've been lucky that it hasn't been exploited too much, but this is exactly the team that can do that because they can't drop a lot of people to help out if they're so worried about stopping Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley up front. So, and also, you can't just double cover AJ Brown. That just opens up things for Devonta Smith. Dallas Goddard is healthy again. They just have so many weapons. That's the vulnerability. And that to me, says that this is probably going to be a game where the Eagles offense is going to be hard to stop. You got to figure they're going to be in the 30s with their scoring, which means that the Commanders' best chance to win this game isn't really slowing down the Eagles. It's keeping up with them in a shootout. And that puts a lot of pressure on Jayden Daniels. And that's where it gets difficult. It was like that with the Baltimore game. If he's got to go pass for pass with Lamar Jackson, run for run with him, maybe he can keep up a little, but in the end, the better quarterback often wins. And I suspect that that's the kind of pressure he's going to be facing in this game, and why I think the Eagles are probably still the class of this division. Although who knows how many more years that's going to last.
Worth noting too, Brian Robinson Jr. is back for this game, so maybe the Commanders can get their ground game going to a degree to keep the Eagles off the field. There were almost 900 yards of combined offense between the Bengals and Ravens last Thursday. This one's got the potential to be equally as good. Ralph, I'm really hoping it is. Looks awesome on paper. We'll see how it goes. As always, I appreciate talking to you, man.
My pleasure. Enjoy the game.
You as well.